Okay, so this last question is for all of you. What advice or what do you think people can do to get more involved? Dave, I'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, like I said in the discussion about talking to the kids, I think if we're talking about systemic racism, that's a 50 to 100-year problem. And maybe with all the expansion of the interest and participation in protests, this is sort of like, hopefully I don't make a bad analogy, like the inconvenient truth before things really went green, you know. But the question is, will efforts towards solving these things really keep momentum? And so the first thing is obviously the police brutality issue. You know, you'd like to see focus on that issue in that case, in that city where it happened. And sometimes, you know, everything gets lost with things flying around Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and this news source and this news source and politicized. But really the bottom line is, like, those 4 policemen, 4 or 5, need to be held accountable and not let off. And then the system that allowed them to do that needs to be reworked. So I'm not a guy who, like, you know, if I see going by my feed, somebody says defund the police, then okay, I'm like, yeah, defund the police. Well, no, I don't know. You have no idea. You have to know what's happening locally and what the real solution is, and that needs to be dug into. And that's the same with every piece of systemic racism that remains in society. There needs to be a focus, and there needs to be hit, you know, one at a time is my suggestion.
Very good. Janine?
I think there's a lot of information out there right now, and I think that we could start with baby steps. If you feel overwhelmed and you want to do something, there are baby steps. And I had a very good friend of mine give me a couple today. I thought hers were better than mine. She just said, do better. If you have a friend that is making comments that they shouldn't, in a gentle way, say, you know, that's not right. Let's not do that. Model this behavior for your children and teach them that diversity and inclusion is important. And then a next generation will learn and move forward from there. And know that unconscious bias exists. We all have it. So if you recognize it, then, you know, just do one thing a day to change it. And you know, try to move forward to make a better world. Little steps, little things can make a better world all the way around.
I challenge all of us to discover our personal blind spots by exposing ourselves to experiences beyond our comfort zones. Fear is a direct result of ignorance. So in this moment, because too many people have selected blissful ignorance at the human life, we're at this point. So I challenge everyone to seek the eradication of ignorance. And then secondly, I challenge us all to take an active interest in the welfare of our neighbors, not just the ones that live to your right and to your left, but the ones on the other side of town. And use your influence towards the enactment of laws that lead to change and challenge those who actively seek to deprive human beings of their constitutional rights.
Yeah. That's perfect. Very good. And Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I've got 2 things. So the first is, Janine kind of brought it up as well too. It's about acknowledging implicit bias. I think we all have biases, but having a bias doesn't necessarily make someone racist. I think you have to be mindful of racial stereotypes and assumptions that can kind of creep into our minds, because these thoughts affect our actions. So you've got to know that those 2 are really like connected very well. And the second was basically it was a sign that I saw on Instagram. Somebody was holding it at a rally or some type of protest, and it said to treat racism like COVID-19. The first was to assume that you have it. The second is to listen to experts. And number 3 was don't spread it. And then number 4 was be willing to change your life to end it. And I felt like those were kind of short and sweet, to the point, but something that everybody could kind of follow, given, like we just were dealing with everything with COVID.
Yeah.